This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. Syrian rebels name Mohammed al-Bashir as head of the new transitional government. Gunmen kidnap at least 50 women and children in Nigeria's Zamfara state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu takes witness stand for the first time for alleged corruption charges. And France's largest internet operator, Orange, slapped with a $53 million fine for sending unsolicited advertisements resembling emails to customers. In a latest from Syria, Mohammed al-Bashir has been appointed as the caretaker Syrian Prime Minister for transitional government until March next year. Al-Bashir ran the rebel-led Salvation government before the 12-day lightning offensive swept into Damascus. And as Syria faces a historic turning point after the dramatic fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, rebels are inching closer towards a transitional government. In fact, they've already now they have their new prime minister, and the regional powers like Turkey and Israel are reacting while world leaders warn of potential instability. Meanwhile, Israel continues to vehemently deny that its forces have penetrated into Syrian territory beyond the buffer zone with the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights after Syrian sources claimed the incursion had extended to within 25 kilometers of capital Damascus. Nupur of DD India tracks the story.
The Assad regime has fallen, but Syria remains gripped by anxiety as multiple powers vie for influence. The power vacuum in Syria is more pronounced in various parts of the nation which are under the control of different factions. Israel sent troops into a buffer zone on the east of the Israeli-annexed Golan Heights, though Tel Aviv maintains that its actions are limited to protecting its own security.
We are taking all the actions necessary to try to ensure our security with regard to the new situation created in Syria. And the State of Israel is establishing its position as a center of power in our region as it has not been for the decades. Those who cooperate with us benefit greatly. Those who attack us lose big. We want to see a different Syria both for our benefit and for the benefit of the people of Syria.
World powers are also expressing concern. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has warned of a possible ISIS resurgence, but assured that the US is committed to preventing it.
The end of this regime is a defeat for all who enabled its barbarity and its corruption. None more than Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. So this moment presents a historic opportunity, but it also carries considerable risks. History shows how quickly moments of promise can descend into conflict and violence. ISIS will try to use this period to reestablish its capabilities, to create safe havens. As our precision strikes over the weekend demonstrate, we are determined not to let that happen.
The changing security situation has altered the diplomatic scenario too. Even as Turkey has reopened border crossings to encourage Syrian refugees to return. Many European nations, including Germany and France, have temporarily frozen asylum applications. Rebel commander Abu Muhammad al-Golani met with Assad's former Prime Minister Mohammad Jalali and Vice President Faisal Mekdad on Monday to negotiate the transfer of power. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting late Monday where diplomats expressed shock at the rapid collapse of Assad's regime just 12 days after the rebel offensive began. Bashar al-Assad fled to Moscow on Sunday, marking the end of over 50 years of Assad family dominance. For Syrians, the sudden change at helm has rekindled hope of peace and prosperity after 13 years. The war has claimed lives of hundreds of thousands and displaced millions. As Syria navigates the uncertainties at this pivotal moment, the world is also following the developments with keen interest, knowing its future could reshape the region for decades to come. Bureau Report, DD India.
RT correspondent Maria Finoshina has sent us this detailed report from Golan Heights on Israel's advancement into Syria. Take a look.
We're now in Majd al-Shams, a village on the Golan Heights, right at the border with the buffer zone separating Israel and Syria. This is what the fence behind me marks, and this gate is the entrance to this zone. Just now we saw Israeli troops entering here, so lots of soldiers and vehicles on this part of the border. On Saturday evening, Israel's war cabinet decided to take full control of this buffer zone, including the Syrian side. The residents and we can now see Israeli tanks, armored vehicles and soldiers, not only here as before, but on the other side of this fence. For the first time since 1967, when Israel first seized the Golan Heights from Syria during the Six-Day War. This zone, a strip of land approximately 80 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide, was established as part of the 1974 disengagement agreement. Until recently, this zone was jointly controlled by Syrian troops and a UN monitoring force. A bit up there, I hope you can see their base. But with Assad's army withdrawing following the fall of Damascus, it's now only the UN and Israel. One might call it seizing the opportunity, but Israel insists they took control over the buffer zone in a purely defensive and temporary move. The IDF is emphasizing it has no intention of staying in that zone permanently. The goal, it says, is to secure Israeli borders and prevent the Syrian conflict from spilling into Israel. How long this presence will last remains unclear.
In other news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the witness stand for the first time on Tuesday in his long-running corruption trial to give testimony. Now, Netanyahu is Israel's first sitting prime minister to be charged with the crime. And he also happens to be the country's longest-serving leader, having been in power almost consecutively since 2009. Israel has been in conflict with Gaza for more than a year, during which Netanyahu has been granted a delay for the start of the court appearances. But last Thursday, judges ruled that he must start testifying. Charged with bribery, fraud and breach of trust, Netanyahu will testify 3 times a week. Well, Russia has announced that the war in Ukraine will continue until President Vladimir Putin's objectives are achieved, stating that no negotiations are currently taking place because the Ukrainian side refuses any talks. President Putin has demanded that Ukraine renounce its plans to join NATO and cede control of 4 regions that Moscow claims as its own, conditions that Kyiv dismisses as equivalent to surrender.
The special military operation will end when all the objectives set by the President and Commander-in-Chief have been achieved. These goals can be achieved as a result of the special military operation or a result of relevant negotiations. There has been no negotiation process yet, as you know. The Ukrainian side refuses any negotiations. This is why the special military operation continues to a victorious end.
Earlier, responding to media discussion on lowering the draft age for Ukrainian soldiers, President Zelensky emphasized on equipping and training existing brigades, rather than compensating it with the youth. He also prioritized providing missiles and lowering Russia's military potential, adding that the goal should be to preserve as many lives as possible. Over 50 women and children were kidnapped by a gang of gunmen in a raid on Kakindawa village in Nigeria's northwest Zamfara state, according to the police and residents. Kidnapping for ransom by gunmen known by locals as bandits is rife in northwest Nigeria due to high levels of poverty, unemployment and the proliferation of illegal firearms. Zamfara police said the incident took place on Sunday and that additional security forces were being deployed. France's largest internet operator, Orange, was slapped with a whopping $53 million fine for sending unsolicited ads resembling emails to customers, the country's privacy watchdog. Now, advertisers in France are required to obtain permission before sending material to a person's email address. According to the watchdog, over 7.8 million users received the unsolicited ads. Orange, which is also a leading telecommunications firm with a popular email service, has vowed to appeal against the penalty. South Korean Parliament has passed a bill to request special counsel to investigate martial law case. Earlier, President Yoon Suk-yeol apologized for his botched attempt to impose martial law and said he was leaving his political and legal fate to his party but has not resigned. He has been banned from leaving the country while Yoon survived an impeachment vote in Parliament on Saturday. His party's decision to delegate presidential authority to the Prime Minister has plunged the key US ally into a constitutional crisis. In a significant and alarming development, the Taiwanese Defense Ministry says that China is deploying its largest Navy fleet in the region, including around Taiwan, in nearly 3 decades, with a threat level more severe than previous Chinese military exercises around the island. Senior Ministry Intelligence Officer Se Ji-seng says that China has nearly 90 Navy Coast Guard ships near Taiwan and 47 military aircrafts were detected operating around the island over the past 24 hours. He also further added that so far there have been no live fire drills in China's 7 reserved airspace zones, 2 of which are in the Taiwan Strait.
This number of China Navy and Coast Guard ships in the region was indeed very alarming, and how they are scattered is beyond the eastern border of Taiwan between the first and the second island chain. I think China's intention is very clear.
In Haiti's capital, around 200 people were killed over the weekend after attacks that an NGO said were ordered by a gang leader who suspected his child had been made ill using witchcraft. Haiti's Prime Minister's office strongly condemned the killing and said in a statement that a red line has been crossed, adding it would mobilize all forces to track down and annihilate those responsible, including the gang leader. Meanwhile, American Airlines has indefinitely suspended all flights to Haiti amid growing safety concerns and rising tensions. Meanwhile, United Nations spokesperson said that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned gang violence and loss of life in Haiti and has called on the Haitian authorities to conduct a thorough investigation and ensure that perpetrators are brought to justice.
The Secretary General expresses his deepest sympathy and condolences to the families of the victims of this horrific act. The Secretary General calls on the Haitian authorities to conduct a thorough investigation and ensure that perpetrators to these and all other human rights abuses and violations are brought to justice. The Secretary General reiterates once again his pressing call to member states to provide the multinational security support mission the financial and the logistical support required to successfully assist the Haitian National Police in addressing gang violence.
A wildfire burning in parts of Southern California city of Malibu exploded in size on Tuesday due in parts to strong Santa Ana winds. The Franklin fire was first reported late on Monday, estimated at some 10 acres according to local authorities, and by Tuesday morning fire officials approximated its size at some 1,800 acres. Nearby, Pepperdine University cancelled classes on Tuesday and issued a shelter-in-place order. Evacuation warnings were issued for other communities. And still to come on this edition of DDN Live. Coming up next, on the other side, we talk about how RBI has reiterated that Indian economy is resilient and robust with capacity to deal with global spillovers very effectively. And India's defense minister is in Moscow, holds talks with his Russian counterpart.
जिंदगी की हर छोटी बड़ी जरूरत के लिए आप जो सपने सजाते हैं, बस उसी उम्मीद को तो हम सहारा लगाते हैं। SIP आपकी सेविंग्स को आपकी खातिर काम पर लगाएगी। आज ही अपनी पहली SIP की शुरुआत करें। अधिक जानकारी के लिए अपने वित्तीय सलाहकार से परामर्श करें। LIC म्यूचुअल फंड द्वारा निवेशक शिक्षा की एक पहल।
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार के जोखिम के अधीन है। योजना से संबंधित सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Let's move on to some more news and updates. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met his Russian counterpart Andrei Belousov in Moscow on Tuesday. Belousov underlined the enduring friendship between Russia and India, also emphasized the mutual trust between the two nations, as well as leaders as a critical factor in strengthening bilateral relations between India and Russia. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also laid a wreath at the tomb of unknown soldier in Moscow. Earlier, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh interacted with the members of the Indian community during his visit to Russia, celebrating the strong cultural ties and contributions of Indians abroad. In his interaction, the Defence Minister appreciated the contributions of Indian diaspora and highlighted India's growth trajectory. From India's Prime Minister to US President discussing the same Ukraine conflict in the same luxurious cabin, this train has seen it all. We are talking about Rail Force One, which is owned by the Ukrainian Railways and represents an incredible feat of luxury on tracks of diplomacy. Here's a detailed report.
Rail Force One isn't just a catchy name, it's a train which represents the incredible feat of iron diplomacy. The train has ferried various prominent world leaders from US President Joe Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This train has earned the fame for the safest and most reliable way to Kiev. Prime Minister Modi undertook a 10-hour-long rail journey from Poland to Ukraine on board the Rail Force One. With this historic visit that held significant diplomatic weight, Prime Minister Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Kiev. The train, which is run by the state-owned Ukrainian Railways, which is also the 6th largest railway passenger transporter in the world and 7th for freight, is painted blue and yellow, the colors of Ukraine's flag. The interior of Train Force One is just as impressive as its guest list, consisting of wood-paneled cabins, kitted out for executive-level work, a long table, a sofa and TV on the wall. But why does this train matter to Ukraine? Trains in the Ukrainian railway network have played an important role in the war effort, including helping transport aid across the country. As the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, many Ukrainians rushed to train stations in an attempt to escape to safer places or to leave the country. For Ukraine, the railways' triumph quickly became another public relations boon and a morale booster. Ukraine's widespread railway network has always been popular, and domestic travelers often favor trains over planes. The train has several luxury compartments previously used to ferry wealthy tourists to the peninsula on the Black Sea. Ayushi Bhatnagar's report for DD India.
Vigyan Bhavan in New Delhi became the centre stage for Human Rights Day 2024 celebrations organised by the National Human Rights Commission. The event focused on mental well-being, navigating stress from classroom to workplace, and was graced by the President of India as a chief guest. Here's a detailed report.
Human Rights Day 2024 was commemorated with a focus on mental well-being at New Delhi. The National Human Rights Commission organized the event, emphasizing the importance of addressing mental health challenges in diverse settings, from educational institutions to workplaces. On this occasion, the President launched the annual English and Hindi journals of the NHRC. These journals include a compilation of essays by scholars offering valuable insights on the evolving landscape of human rights. In her address, the President of India emphasized India's role as the voice of the voiceless on the global stage, highlighting the country's commitment to championing human rights and equality. She commended the NHRC for its dedicated efforts in empowering marginalized communities, including transgenders and the LGBTQ population. The President also stressed the urgent need to address global challenges like cyber safety, which affect human rights and mental well-being.
सरकार सभी के लिए आवास, स्वच्छ पेयजल, बेहतर स्वच्छता, बिजली, रसोई गैस और वित्तीय सेवाओं से लेकर स्वास्थ्य सेवा और शिक्षा तक कोई सामाजिक, आर्थिक और सांस्कृतिक अधिकारों की गारंटी भी देती है।
The event brought together policymakers, mental health professionals, and human rights advocates, reinforcing a collective commitment to creating a more equitable, inclusive, and secure world. Kriti Vadhera's report for DD India.
The outgoing Governor of Reserve Bank of India, Shaktikanta Das, has reiterated that Indian economy is resilient and robust with capacity to deal with global spillovers very effectively. Addressing his concluding press conference as Governor, he also highlighted certain challenges including the changing world order and geopolitical environment, cybersecurity threats, capitalizing in harnessing new technologies.
Restoring the inflation growth balance is the most important task ahead of the Reserve Bank, and I am sure the team RBI under the leadership of the new governor will take it forward. Cybersecurity and its associated risks and threats, I think that is a big challenge for every authority, not only in India but all over the world, and particularly for a central bank. In the last 6 years and even earlier also, we have given a lot of attention to this issue of cyber security and dealing with cyber challenge, the cyber threats and challenges. That is a continuing task because the challenges are continuing, new challenges are emanating, and that will be a continuing challenge for every central bank in the world, including the Reserve Bank of India.
Shaktikanta Das, the 25th RBI governor, is set to demit office today. That's on Tuesday, paving the way for Sanjay Malhotra, the current revenue secretary, to assume the position as the 26th governor of the RBI, that's the Reserve Bank of India. But as much as of the Western world is heading towards the Christmas season, there are some cherished traditions, some of which are getting more expensive, like a chocolate Santa, a favorite treat for young and old. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin for more on this. Now, Lars, let's talk about the chocolate as a luxury product. There seems to be one of the outlier to this trend of people spending less. What can you tell us more about it?
Yes, absolutely. And that baffles me too. There's all this price pressure and people seriously noticing when a chocolate Santa's price is going up by $1. And then there's Dubai chocolate, which has become a huge new thing here in Europe and is currently all the buzz in Germany. I don't know if you are familiar with this. I wasn't until a few weeks ago. This Dubai-made chocolate bar has pistachio filling and it retails for €30 at my local store. That's right, that's €30 as opposed to 1 or 2 for a regular chocolate bar. It's supposed to be very good. I haven't tried it because I can't afford it. But, well, it shows that as much as Germans are worried about inflation and as much as they're watching prices in the grocery aisle, they don't mind to pay a premium sometimes on a special treat.
Thank you, Lars. And staying with Christmas light displays and a holiday caravan is thrilled onlookers in Santiago as the festive season kicked into gear in the capital city. A caravan of decorated and illuminated Coca-Cola trucks drove through the streets of Santiago, delighting attendees who crowded the sidewalks to see Santa Claus and his Christmas Elvis parade.
Oh, gracias, querida. Yo también te quiero mucho, mucho, mucho. Oye, veo muchas caras.
And people in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, were soaking up the Christmas atmosphere in the lead up to the festive season. Christmas decorations have been set up all over the capital with local squares and trees adorned with lights to usher in the year and festivities. And before we end, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platform. Now, Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then download Waves today. With that, that's it for this edition of DD India Live. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on your channel DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.